Ever since Universal announced Epic Universe back in 2019, Disney has kept quiet on the subject, and understandably so. Bringing any sort of attention to your competitor's brand new theme park is only going to help to promote it, which is the last thing that Disney wants to do. However, what this has resulted in is a lot of confusion from shareholders about what Disney's stance is on the topic. Are they preparing for it? Are they intimidated by it? Do they see it as a threat? Do they think it's actually going to be something that helps them because it's only going to bring attention to the Central Florida market, bring in more tourists that will ultimately find their way to Disney World? Or are they just ultimately not seeing it as any sort of major factor to worry about at all? And it's not like we've been able to glean a whole lot from what Disney's been doing at the parks, as much of their major investments came towards the end of the 2010s, and their pipeline for future attractions up until very recently has looked extremely barren. And even the stuff that Disney is either currently teasing or is anticipated to announce at D23 later this year, ultimately are not going to open up for several years down the line, as Disney is notorious for being extremely long in their construction times, and none of these projects have broken ground yet. So on one hand, it seems that Disney is not at all intimidated by Epic Universe, as they're giving them at least a few years of just open season with next to no new projects opening up at Disney World to compete with it. But on the other hand, we know Disney has major projects down the line. We know Disney is committing several $billion towards the park division over the next 10 years. It seems that they are anticipating there is going to be some reason to have to invest in the parks in the coming years. Is that reason Universal? Is that reason Epic Universe? We don't know, because Disney has kept their mouth shut on the subject, and they've been doing things that seem to be conflicting against each other as far as whether or not they see Epic Universe as a threat or they don't. But just recently, we finally got a statement from Disney about how they feel about Epic Universe and how it's going to affect their business going forward. After all, Universal has been dropping teasers, dropping concept art, and showing off the current construction of the park. We're 1 year away from the park opening. The cat is out of the bag. There's no reason for Disney to keep their mouth shut on this any longer, and they need to actually address shareholders and say, this is what's going on. And let me just preface this statement by saying this is not some sort of level-headed statement. This might be the most delusional, insane theme park take I have ever read. I thought about it for a few days. Yeah, I think it might be the most insane thing I've ever read. And it's made more insane by the fact that it's coming straight from Disney themselves. So, without further ado, here's the statement. A Disney spokesperson in an interview with the Wall Street Journal had this to say about Epic Universe, and I quote, "Epic is Universal playing catch-up on a decade of non-stop development at Walt Disney World." Now, don't worry folks, I'm not going to blow a gasket just yet. I will stay cool, calm, and collected while I explain why this is an insane thing to say. No, I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to stay calm. But clearly, what Disney is trying to portray with this statement is that they don't care about Epic Universe. They don't care about Universal. They don't see them as a threat whatsoever. It's not going to impact them at all because Disney is ahead of the curve. Now, that being said, before I run too far with this, let's just be clear. This is one spokesperson saying this. Yes, they are representing the company, but I'm sure there's some people in leadership or Imagineering or park management who don't share this same opinion. However, what it also tells us is that either one, Disney is unbelievably delusional, or they're massive liars. Because what Disney is trying to push here is revisionist history. It is simply not what has played out. It is not what has transpired. Sure, when you look at the decade that Disney is talking about here, yeah, Disney's built a whole lot more. They built 3 brand new lands. They've added a whole bunch of attractions. You can maybe make the argument that Universal's additions maybe were higher in quality overall, even though there were certainly some stinkers in there. And maybe even you could argue that maybe Universal built a similar amount since they built a whole brand new water park on top of everything else they built. But I think you could give Disney the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, they built more than Universal did in this past decade. And thus, this is where Disney gets off saying that, oh, Universal's playing catch up because we did more than them in the last decade. Therefore, Epic Universe is just them evening the playing field as far as new additions go. And if they're just evening the playing field as far as new additions, then guess what? They're not making up any ground on us whatsoever, and we still are by far the industry leader. But what prompted Disney to build all these new attractions, all these new lands, and invest so much money into the parks? They just did it out of the blue? Really? What if we extend the timeline just a couple years outside of that decade mark? Oh, what's here? It's the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. It's almost like what Disney was building in the early stages of this past decade was in response to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, aka it was Disney playing catch up with the massive investments that Universal had made that made them actual direct competitors of Disney for the first time in history. But no, according to Disney, those meant nothing. Those had no impact on the theme park landscape whatsoever. And really, the timeline as far as when things actually started to matter was 10 years ago, guys. Anything before that? No, that doesn't matter. What are you talking about? Wizarding World of what? I've never heard of the guy. What are you talking about? So really, Disney? You want to talk about who's playing catch up? You just finished catching up with Universal after the investments in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and everything else they've done since then. Now you're telling me that them building a whole brand new theme park is them somehow catching up with you? How is that even possible? And I know you don't want me to bring up the attendance numbers, because Universal has already been gaining significant ground on you even without Epic Universe in the conversation. In the latest attendance numbers we have access to, Islands of Adventure had more attendance than 3 of the 4 Walt Disney World parks, with of course the one exception being Magic Kingdom. And Universal Studios Florida was not too far behind, only being behind Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. So when you said that Universal was playing catch up, you really should have been more so referring to attendance as opposed to attractions built, because Universal actually is catching up to you in attendance. And once Epic Universe opens, let me tell you, if things play out the way that Universal's hoping they do, that gap is going to continue to narrow. But clearly, based on this statement, Disney has zero faith in Universal being able to pull any rabbit out of their hat. They don't think that Epic Universe is going to play any significant role in detering Disney's business, short term or long term. But I'm not just making this claim based on this one statement alone, or even the actions or lack thereof that they've been taking at the parks. I'm also basing it on what Disney CEO Bob Iger had to say about Epic Universe recently as well, where basically he said, yeah, we've known about Epic Universe for 10 years now. We're fully prepared for it, and we are not at all worried about it. Which, of course, you know, is what you love to hear from your leader. You want to hear that you're not worried about the competition. You're not unprepared for what they have to throw at you. But let me ask Bob Iger, what have you done to prepare for Epic Universe? Are you talking about the 3 major lands you built at the end of the 2010s that by the time Epic Universe opens are going to be 6 to 8 years old? Are you talking about the stuff that you have in the pipeline right now that's not going to open up until years after Epic Universe opens? How exactly are you prepared for Epic Universe? Because it kind of seems like to me, you're just letting Universal do whatever they want with Epic Universe and have free reign of the open market. So once again, I ask the question, is this just delusion? Or are they actively just putting on a facade for the shareholders, acting like, yeah, we're ready for Epic Universe, when really they know that they are not? But maybe I'm being too harsh on Disney. Maybe they're right to underestimate Epic Universe. Maybe they don't need to invest massive amounts of money into the parks in order to compete with Universal, especially considering that Epic Universe is going to likely be a tide that raises all ships, at least in the short term. Maybe they're right to believe that no matter what Universal does, they'll never reach the heights of Disney World. But let me tell you a story of the last time Disney doubted Universal. It came in 2007 when Universal announced the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was coming to Islands of Adventure. And what did Disney do when they heard this news? They kicked their feet up on their ottoman and they took a nap. They literally could care less. I mean, J.K. Rowling came to them first and said, hey, I want to do a Harry Potter theme park land. And they said, we'll give you a teacups ride. Is that good enough? And she said, nope. And she walked right down the street to Universal. And they said, okay, big whoop. We don't care. We don't think your property's worth anything anyways. That's why we offered you basically just a teacup ride. And we're going to move on with our day. We don't care. Okay, big whoop. But once construction photos of this project started to come out and more buzz was being built up for it, Disney started to get a little worried. That's when they start putting New Fantasyland into production. That's when they start to crack a deal with James Cameron to get Avatar into the parks. They're starting to get a little worried. They're actually starting to get worried that Harry Potter might do something. And then, once the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opens and shatters records for Universal and brings new attendance to the park that they had never seen previously, that's when everyone at Disney started to scramble. And that's why we see all of these projects like Toy Story Land, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and all these individual attractions get thrown into production and eventually come out later in the decade. Why did it take so long to respond? Because these projects were not even put into development until after the Wizarding World of Harry Potter had already opened, leading to Disney, of course, taking their normal amount of time to build new attractions, which is forever, and resulting in them coming out way later than the Wizarding World of Harry Potter did, giving those lands and Universal free reign to build market share and grow their attendance with very little pushback from Disney. Ultimately, Disney took a reactionary approach, and it cost them. Universal gained a whole bunch of market share and attendance they would not have gotten otherwise if Disney had projects of their own, taking the spotlight away from Universal and the Harry Potter lands, and leading to people visiting Disney instead of more people getting a chance to taste Universal and enjoy it enough to where they would end up coming back year after year. And this statement just solidified what my worst fear for Disney was, and that's that they would repeat the past and once again take a reactionary approach to another big swing from Universal. Last time, it cost them dearly. And now, on a bigger swing from Universal, Disney is daring to take another doubt Universal type of approach to the situation. I mean, I just don't understand it, because think about how costly that mistake was to doubt Universal in the first place. Disney had no competition whatsoever to speak of in the Orlando market before Harry Potter took off. They had none, absolutely zero. They were literally sitting on the top of the mountain, and it was Universal, SeaWorld, and whoever else fighting for the scraps to be added on to the end of a Disney World trip. It was Disney World at the top of the mountain, and they were practically a monopoly in the market. And now you actually have a direct competitor because you doubted that Universal had the capabilities to compete with you. And now you're doing it again. And if Epic Universe is a success, holy cow, now there's really no looking back. Because now it's not just a case of, oh, you've introduced a competitor in the market. Now you have somebody who's actually coming for your top spot. This is not just somebody who's coming for a chunk of your market share. This is somebody who's going for the grand prize. They're going for the crown. They want to be king of the hill. And you just keep letting them make swings and try and take home run shots on you while you're throwing meatballs at them. But Disney knows this. They see the writing on the wall. They see Epic Universe being built. They see the teasers Universal's doing. Why do you think that all of a sudden they're investing $60 billion in the parks? Why do you think all of a sudden we're starting to see teasers and announcements for new projects coming forward? Because Disney has entered reactionary mode. They are starting to realize, oh wait, Epic Universe could be a problem for us, like they were doing when Wizarding World of Harry Potter was being built, and are now greenlighting projects that previously, they just couldn't find the funding for. They just couldn't make the funding come over. They had to invest in other things in the company, guys. But now that Epic Universe is 1 year away, now you found the money when these projects that you're putting money towards are not going to open for another 3 to 5 years, at which point, guess what? The same exact thing that happened with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, where it had years to run with next to no response from Disney, is going to happen exactly the same way with Epic Universe, where Disney's going to have nothing new on their plate, and if anything, it's actually going to have multiple parts of their park closed, like Dinoland USA, while Epic Universe is brand spanking new. And of course, will garner all the attention, meaning, guess what? Universal's going to gain a whole bunch of market share before Disney does anything to slow up that process. And as we saw last time, once Universal started gaining market share, even when they weren't building major groundbreaking projects like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, they were still continuing to gain attendance and gain market share on you while you were barely moving the needle in the attendance market. As the holy text in The Great Gatsby stated, you can't repeat the past. And yet somehow Disney is proving F. Scott Fitzgerald wrong by repeating the past here in the modern age. Congratulations, Disney. So, sorry for ranting like a madman, but that statement just blew my mind. Disney's decision-making recently has been absolutely questionable, to say the least. And I think one of those decisions that I found to be most baffling is replacing Dinoland USA right now. I made a whole video talking about that if you want to know why that's stupid. It should be in the middle of the screen right now. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll see you all next time. Peace.